we'll start with the mandala offering, very auspicious. And it's actually this meaning of the mandala offering is actually it's the center, the inviter. So in this case, it's the center. It's Tupta Nobu Ling offering a mandala as a request for the teachings. So I'm happy to be the Umze. You want me to be the Umze, Mary? Mary, do you want me to be the Umze? Mary can't. What's wrong?
So kind. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So we've got the prayer there, Mary. Can we have a prayer, please? Mandala offering. Mandala offering. You have it?
I'll send her a message.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So can you put it on the screen for us, Mary? Okay, here we go. So what this is, that's right. What this is, a mandala, you see when you see those circular drawings, they're mandalas, and what they are really are like architectural drawings of the different Buddhas. They all got the Buddhas all got a subtler level of existence, and they have this, and this is their abode. So it's an architectural drawing basically. So the mandala we're describing here, the abode we're describing here, is ours as humans. So of course, if you read the long prayer, if you're familiar with it, you'll see that it's not the abode that we're familiar with. It's got, we've got, for example, we're in the southern continent, and our sky is blue because it's reflecting off lapis lazuli. I mean, who would have learned that? Nobody. So we don't know that cosmological view of the universe. We think of our own. So basically, this mandala, you just imagine. You just use your creative imagination. You think of all the wonderful things in this universe that people use that make people happy. All the beautiful things, food and objects of all the senses. You pile them all up. Really, this is what it is. You pile it all up and you offer to the Buddha. So offerings is a really huge practice, and we might mention that in this practice. We'll see what happens. But we think we're offering to the Buddha. So we imagine the Buddha as if the Buddha were here. And of course, if we understand what a Buddha is, the Buddha is here. The Buddha's consciousness is existing wherever there is existence. So we imagine that, and we're requesting the Buddha for the teachings. It's very auspicious to do this. We're making this offering. And the second prayer is we actually, So the second prayer is, you'll see the lines. The first two lines, we're reiterating our reliance on the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, for those of us who already identify with being a Buddhist. And the second two lines there are really stating our motivation. We might say, what's our purpose? Why are we here together? The Lamas would say, state our motivation. Well, our motivation, our purpose is to listen to these teachings, to take some advice from them, so that we can develop our amazing potential, so we can help others, all the way to Buddhahood. That's the idea. So that's the meaning of these different words. So you can either just contemplate the meaning as I sing, or you can say the words in English, or you can say them in Tibetan, as you wish. And if you know the mudra, all these kind of like, these different ways of using your hands. I was thinking of them like those Latino, all the Mexican gangsters, gang signs, But this Buddha's gang signs. This is a mandala. The center is Mount Meru, and the other four are the four continents. Okay, so we imagine offering all these marvelous things. Saji perki jokshing metog tramri rablingji ni de gyanpadi sangye jingdu mikte urwagi drokon namdag jingla chapashok. And now as we say the Sanskrit mantra, we imagine Buddha very happily receiving our offering. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Sangye Charang Soke Chognamla Jangcho Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shog Sangye Charang Soke Chognamla Jangcho Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shog Sangye Charang Soke Chognamla Jangcho Badu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Penchir Sangye Drupa Shog. All right. Thank you, Mary. So the way to understand Tara, we've got to understand what a Buddha is. Buddha. And even why that, I always say this because it's so, so helpful for our minds to understand. The end result of all this practice, and we're figuring we're Buddhists, the end result of all this work is we become a Buddha. And it's really so tasty and so direct and so helpful to understand the meaning of the word Buddha. The etymology of this word is so delicious. It's extremely, it tells us everything. Both the Tibetan words, Sangye, and the Sanskrit, the Buddha and Sangye, the same. So Bud or Sang implies the utter eradication from our mind, from our consciousness, from our very being, of all delusions, all ego, all fears, all the rubbish, all the dramas that we're intimately familiar with. I mean, this alone is a shocking concept if we compare with neuroscience and with psychology. It's an outrageous idea. It's weird, in fact, to think that you could rid the mind utterly of all rubbish, ego, fears, depression, anxiety, jealousy, low self-esteem, and suffering. But that's Buddha's entire point. And who's telling us this? The person called Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he did the job and he presents his methodology and he says, if you want to achieve that, then you follow my steps. Not only can we do that, but we can develop to perfection everything else in our mind. Love, wisdom, intelligence, compassion, because this stuff is the core of our being. So if that's the result, then that tells us the methodology, doesn't it? So our job is to become a Buddha if we say we're Buddhists. That's the point. Okay, so now, ultimately, another way to talk, there's two different ways of describing what a Buddha is. There's the conventional or the relative Buddha, and then the absolute, or finally what Buddha really means. So the word Buddha actually refers to the enlightened consciousness, not a body, the consciousness, mind. Okay, mind, consciousness, they use synonymously. So when you are fully developed, your consciousness which is not physical anyway, it's rid of all the rubbish and full of all the goodness. So it also has the other characteristics, because it's not physical. And think about this, if something's not physical, try and conceptualize, how can it be confined by space or time or matter? It can't, finally. So right now, our mind, which is not physical, is locked in this body because of delusions, because of past karma. We're so addicted to our own views of reality, and due to desire and due to ego grasping and all the other delusions, we've created this universe we live in, and we've created this bag of bones that we walk around in that our mind is conjoined with. But when our mind is fully developed, no need for bodies any longer. This mind of yours, this is the ultimate Buddha, the absolute Buddha. And the Sanskrit word, you might see these words in the teachings, Dharmakaya. Technically, it means truth body, just the way they describe. So that's the actual meaning of the Buddha. Because by the time you become a Buddha, you no longer need a bag of bones. You no longer need a gross body. Any kind of gross form is a result of karma, and you finished that job a long time ago. So actual Buddha is the unmanifest, all-pervasive, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-powerful consciousness. That's actual Buddha. So now, given that a person who's become a Buddha, what motivated them, what impelled them for countless lifetimes is unbelievable compassion. As Lama Zopa says, unbearable compassion for the suffering of all sentient beings. So to become a Buddha and then just hang out in the sky and be blissing out, which is what you would be if you're a Buddha, and not, that's ridiculous. So because you become a Buddha to benefit others, then who can communicate with the Buddha at that level? It's impossible. We're too gross. So the Buddhas compassionately manifest in the relative form. So classically in Buddhism then, the relative form of the Buddha is Mr. Shakyamuni, Lord Buddha of 2,500 years ago, who manifested as a human being and showed the way. He was the guru of the time. He was this human being who showed the steps by becoming a Buddha, and showing us the way. So that's the relative Buddha. And in terms of this world, this eon that we're in, of the founding Buddhas, we are in the time of Shakyamuni, and it's his teachings that we are practicing in order for us to become a Buddha. So there's then within the fact of, so that's called the Rupakaya. There's the truth body, which is the actual Buddha, and then there's the form body, Rupakaya, form, in which Buddha manifests. Now, there are two of those, and this is now where we're coming to Tara. There are two of those. There's the form that's known as the Nimanakaya, the emanation body. And that's the one that peanuts like you and me can see. Well, I mean, technically we really can't see. We just see a nice human being called Shakyamuni, you know. But any form at a relative level, at that level, that's suitable for people like you and me, that's the Nirmanakaya. And there's any of those. I mean, Buddha by that point can manifest as mountains and dogs and toilets and lamps and carnations. They can do anything. They can manipulate the universe to do whatever they want to manifest sentient beings. The Nirmanakaya, the emanation body. So let's think of Shakyamuni Buddha. He's the emanation body, and he's the form of the Buddha in the sutra teachings. And he's mainly, showing us the aspect of practice at the first stages of the Lam Rim, completely subdued body, speech, and mind. He's the manifestation of the subdued body, speech, and mind. He's the representation of that level of practice. But now we've got the compassion wing. And then we have another form in which the Buddha manifests, and that's called the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body. So that's what's depicted when we talk about Tantra. So because Tantra is the more advanced levels of the Mahayana path. You've got the Sutra teachings and the Tantra teachings. So the enjoyment body is not visible to people like you and me. That's the form of the Buddha that the Buddha would manifest in the meditation of the Arya bodhisattvas, those bodhisattvas who have achieved realization of emptiness, and because their minds are more subtle, so they can cognize Buddha in a subtler level. So all the different Buddhas, and in Tantra there are thousands of these different manifestations, and essentially they're manifestations of different qualities, either that we want to cultivate, like Shakyamuni Buddha, subdue the body, speech, and mind, the first stages of practice, or here, more dramatic level as well in Tantra, even these different Buddhas are manifestations, purified aspects of the delusions that we want to purify. And there's thousands of them, countless numbers. And it's basically psychology. I mean, even just Shakyamuni, we see this nice monk looking very holy with a, little top knot on his head, looking with his robes, meditating. But if you think about it, it's a visual representation of exactly what we're trying to practice. All the different levels of completely subduing the body and speech and the mind, and including compassion. But the tantric one is a different aspect, is not as a monk. So Tara is an example of this. Chenrezig, there are thousands of them. And every one of them, as I said, it's psychology. I mean, it's not the psychology we think about, but you think of their archetypes, if you like. They're archetypes. So Tara, so there are three essential, there are hundreds of these Buddhas, thousands. One way you can divide them all, you must have heard about the 5 Buddha families, is one of the translations. And there are these 5 of these Buddhas, and each of these, Amitabha, for example, he's a manifestation, he's like the boss of that one, and he's a manifestation of purified desire, attachment. And there's many of the Buddhas are in that family. For example, Chenrezig, Tara, they're in that family. They're related to that. Then you've got, what's some of their names? Ratnasambhava. I forget their colors. He's yellow. He's yellow, and he's a manifestation of purified, I think, jealousy. Then you've got Varachana, he's white. He's a manifestation of purified ignorance. Then you've got Akshobhya, he's blue. He's a manifestation of purified anger. So they're each manifestate, and then they're different in these families, and all the other thousands of Buddhas fit into those families. So it's a whole kind of map of all these different psychological qualities that we want to cultivate, or indeed that we want to purify. All these Buddhas represent those. So for example, you've got Vajrayogini, this gorgeous naked red lady. She's a manifestation of purified attachment, and you've got wrathful ones, you've got peaceful ones, all kinds. And it's just basically psychology. I mean, the fact is, if there's anything in Buddhism, if there's a single phrase, a sentence, a practice that isn't to help you rid the mind of the rubbish and grow all the goodness, become a Buddha, then it's a load of rubbish. Reject it, it says in Tsongkhapa's wonderful Lam Rim text, hymns of experience, it's about 25 verses, hymns of experience. And one of the verses says something like, all the teachings are to be taken as sound advice because there is no contradiction between scripture and practice. Well, what that means is if you had a cookbook, right, a cookbook, you would say all the teachings in this book, all the recipes are to be taken as sound advice. Every single thing in this book necessarily has to be something you can make in the kitchen because there's no contradiction between the recipes and the cake. It's exactly the same thing. And we would expect out of a cookbook. It's exactly the same here, So it's a really important point to remember. So if there's anything at all, anything that you might hear about in Buddhism that is not a practice, is not a method that helps you rid the mind of the rubbish and grow the goodness and become a Buddha, then it's a load of nonsense. It's superstition. It's just kind of just myth. So don't do it, It's really important to remember that. So every one of these practices, I mean, the commonest thing we often say when we hear about Tantra is, oh, all this ritual, all these goddesses. I mean, of course, it's confusing to us. There's no reference point for it. Maybe if you've been a Catholic, there's a few versions of Our Lady and a few versions of the different saints. We kind of get it, but it's not really the same. You're not trying to, it's not quite exactly the same. Here in Buddhism, the only reason to meditate on Tara is to become like that. That means you better know what she means. Okay, we're not used to thinking some naked green lady with gorgeous breasts and looking like an Indian lady of 2,500 years ago. We're not used to thinking that she's representing qualities, but what does she represent? Well, okay, first of all, she's in that Amitabha family. Secondly, though, one way of presenting Tara, Buddha Tara, you could say that a Buddha has 3 essential qualities. One is, that lovely analogy, I use it all the time. A bird needs 2 wings, wisdom and compassion. Well, the essential qualities of a Buddha, they've got all both. And all the first stages of the Lam Rim, junior school and high school, the first and second scopes, that's the wisdom wing. And then you've got the compassion wing, which is the bodhisattva path, and the bird needs you need both of these to fly. You need both of these to become a Buddha. So there's a third quality, though. So that you could say that, for example, there's wisdom. So first of all, you've got compassion. Okay, compassion is this incredible empathy with all beings as if they were you, as if there's no separation. That's how you would be when you're finally a Buddha. You're oneness with every single being in the universe without exception, no separation. That's compassion. Now that's a manifestation of this is Chenrezig, compassionate eyed one, compassion Buddha. So you've got to have compassion to want to benefit others. Like I said, that's what impels the bodhisattvas to never give up over countless lifetimes. That's the key characteristic of a bodhisattva, never giving up. But compassion is the wish to benefit, but it's not enough. You've got to have the wisdom that knows how. And that's a manifestation of this is Manjushri, Manju, gentle voice, Jamyang in Tibetan. That's wisdom that sees exactly, that has understood emptiness and sees exactly everything that exists as it exists. Omniscience is actually the final wisdom of a Buddha. And this sounds very shocking for us to think that's psychology, but this is exactly what Buddha is saying, that every consciousness necessarily possesses this potential. That's what Buddha has found, So the wisdom to see perfectly the minds of all those beings for whom the Buddha has compassion, and knows therefore exactly how to help them because he can see all their karma, exactly how, perfectly qualified. But the third one is the power to be able to do it, action energy. And Tara is a manifestation of that one. The classic one that we often see is Vajrapani, a kind of wrathful, dark blue Buddha, male Buddha. He's the manifestation of the power of the Buddha, the ability to act. Well, Tara is one of those as well. Action energy. That's what she represents. They've all got the same qualities, all got the same wisdom, all got the same compassion, but they're kind of dressed up differently, showing different manifestations. So Tara's female. Often that female quality is like quick, cutting through the nonsense, it kind of represents a very quick, sharp kind of energy. The Chenrezig is in this case is male, and then there's wisdom, Manju, gentle voice. He's male as well. So wisdom, compassion, and then the ability to do so. So in daily life, we can see we need all of this badly. Forget the Buddha qualities, just the wisdom to see how things are, not to make a mess of our lives, the compassion to have empathy with others, not to feeling separate and lonely and depressed. But the power to act, that's the one we often miss. We need this badly. It's like success, optimism, positive, act, and especially action energy, cut through the obstacles and make things happen. We all need this one badly, This is a very particularly powerful way to think about Tara, Whether we're boys or girls has nothing to do with it. These are just representing different our characteristics that we all possess, And you can see if we do enter into the tantric path and we first take refuge in the lay vows and the bodhisattva vows, then we'll take eventually an empowerment in these different practices, the different levels of empowerments, so that the level that we're doing tonight, Tara, you don't need an empowerment to do this simple practice. But as we get more advanced, there are more advanced levels of Tara that we do need an empowerment. For example, Chitta Mani Tara, So eventually, if we do get into these practices, we'll start to connect with particular Buddhas that we feel close to. And then you'll eventually recognize what they call your yidam, your own meditation Buddha, the one that you feel is the one that represents you in this life. And that's why you can see, different lamas enemies have these different connections. Some, a female, like a nice, quiet little female person might have her main deity might be Yamantaka, with this wrathful dude who'd scare the life out of you who met him in a human form. super fierce, you know. I mean, I remember Geshe Lama Kontrog, amazing Lama. I think some of you might have heard of him, one of the great yogis. He spent the last 20 years of his life at Courtin Monastery. Before that, he lived in caves, you know, naked, no food, no sleep for years. And Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. But when you met him, he was this very tall, grumpy, wrinkled, like old grandpa, like a wrathful old grandpa. But he was a manifestation of this radiant, blissful female deity, you know. So what do we know? I mean, as all the Tibetans say, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. Then we all need all of these qualities. Don't just say, I should just do one or two. We all need all of these qualities. We all need wisdom. We all need compassion. We all need power, action, success, courage, confidence. We need these badly to succeed in our lives, you know. We need the wrathful qualities. We need the peaceful qualities. We need all of them. So there's something to say, to think about. But before we do the practice, I think it's good if you ask me some questions about that. If there's any questions just about that. If there's not, that's really fine. Any questions at all? Brad has a question.
Can you just talk about the Hey Vajra, the quality of Hey Vajra?
Well, Hey Vajra is a practice that's, you must know, it's one of the main practices in the Sakya tradition. Right? Sakya tradition, yes. And I don't know much about him, but I think he's a similar quality to Chakrasambhara or Vajrayogini, a manifestation of purified attachment. That's the best I can say, but don't take that as an absolute truth. I'm not so familiar. I'm so sorry, Brad.
That's all right.
But you can read this. I mean, there must be wonderful teachings by His Holiness Sakya Trinz and other Sakya Lamas that would certainly answer your questions, I'd say. Have you read some of the books?
No.
Okay, I suggest you look up because he's the heart. I think he's a special practice in Sakyas.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Brad. Thank you. Someone else? Anything at all, please. Nothing. Okay, so let's do some practice then. We'll do a little visualization, and then we can have some questions again. Thanks, darling. While I blow my nose, excuse me. So another thing to talk about in these practices, I mean, you know, we all hear the term guru devotion. So certainly when we do these practices, but anything, even if we're just visualizing Shakyamuni Buddha, this is something to really, it's just helpful to understand, I think, in a very simple way. I'll keep it simple. I can't talk about it in a not simple way anyway. It's really important to understand in a very down-to-earth way, because we can get, I mean, if you read the classical kind of, you know, medieval Lama Tsongkhapa teachings about guru devotion, it just seems so complex and so arcane to us. It's hard for us to get our heads around it, I think. And we can often mystify it and misunderstand the meaning. But there's something extremely practical and very logical about this concept of guru devotion, the essence of which is when we think the Buddha, for example, Tara, then we think that's the same as the guru. And when we think the guru, we think that's the Buddha. So what's the logic of this? It's got to be logical. That's a bit surprise to us sometimes because we think spiritual doesn't have to be logical. That's absolutely not the truth here. If it's not logical, if you can't conceptualize it and be logical, then it's a load of rubbish. That's a fact, no matter how complex it is. So the point is this. I remember Lama Yeshe saying one time, he said, look, he said, the Buddha's dead. I mean, Shakyamuni Buddha is not here with us. His body has gone. He was the first teacher at this time in this history of the time of Buddhism who presented the Buddha's teachings. He wasn't the first in general, and he won't be the last. But he was the person in our history, in our time, who was the one who brought Buddhism to this planet, you know, at this time. So he was then known as the teacher. When we see the statues, we think, oh, there's the Buddha. That's the Buddha. And then we think of some other person like now present, looking like him, like a monk as well. Oh, that's the Buddha too. Well, how do I know? Well, excuse me, I don't think when you're back there in India and the place was crawling with sadhus, I mean, the place had so many holy beings, you couldn't believe it. All these amazing geniuses who were the ones who out of, you know, the Buddha studied with first. Buddha didn't come out of the sky. He came out of this amazing tradition of these extraordinarily sophisticated thinkers and scholars and yogis and meditators, these great Indians. They're the ones who created single point of concentration. And there's an extraordinary system that existed then. He came out of that and then he diverged in his own direction in relation to particular, you know, specifically in relation to his own direct experiential findings about the nature of self. That's where he diverged. And that's how we have the Buddha's teachings now. But so much is shared with the previous teachings. So the thing was back then, The place had, I mean, it was huge. There's so many practitioners and these great holy beings, going off into retreat in the mountain, in the forest. And there would have been thousands of them hanging around with their yellow robes on. So you could, I mean, guaranteed, there's no way you would have said when you saw the Buddha, as opposed to all the other sadhus, oh, there's a Buddha, there's an enlightened being. You're not possible. You're not clairvoyant. You wouldn't have known. It's easy for us to look at the statue and go, oh, there's the Buddha. He was the teacher at the time. Guru is this lovely Sanskrit word that apparently kind of colloquially means heavy with qualities. My goodness, we need a person heavy with qualities, don't we? You know? That's the meaning of guru. It's a spiritual teacher. Well, that's exactly what Shakyamuni Buddha was at the time. He was the teacher then. No different from now. So let's just think of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness. I mean, they all say, all the lamas say he's a Buddha. How would I know? We do not know unless we're clairvoyant. We can have confidence he is the Buddha, and that's the whole job. But let's say he is the Buddha. He looks, as far as we're concerned, like Shakyamuni, he looks like a human being, a very nice human being, no question. Very powerful human being. He's touched the lives of millions of people, a lot more than Shakyamuni would at the time, you know, because of the way the world is now. But we still think, well, what do you mean he's the Buddha? Well, why did you say it about the person back then? You couldn't tell. We can't tell by looking. So the point is this. Because we can't tell by looking who is a Buddha, because a Buddha doesn't need a body. By definition, a Buddha does not need a body, as I mentioned before. But they take a body to look like you and me. So a Buddha doesn't need a body. A Buddha doesn't need a body. What we see is flesh. What we see is a nice Tibetan human being, His Holiness. But they don't need bodies. So if he is a Buddha, he's manifesting throughout the universe in countless bodies. So then we have to develop a confidence that he is the Buddha. So why would we want to do that? This is the crux of the point. Why would we want to cultivate the confidence that, for example, His Holiness, or indeed our own spiritual teacher, whoever ours is, it's exactly the same logic. Why do we need to develop the confidence that he is the Buddha? There's logic to this, and it's not easy for our minds to think about it. But as Lama Zopa said one time, Lama Yeshe, he said, I'll start to quote before, he said, the Buddha is no longer here. The Buddha is dead. So the Four Noble Truths will only become real for you when you hear it from the mouth of a person whom you have confidence is the Buddha for you. Because that's the power of the person. I mean, the Dalai Lama could be Buddha for, but if you see this nice gentleman walking around, say he walked around in a suit and a tie, looking like a regular person, nobody in the universe would ever think there's a Buddha. You could have a Buddha living next to you. This is in the Bodhisattva teachings. The Tibetans say you do not know who anybody is. And because Bodhisattvas and Buddhas are manifesting in ordinary bodies as ordinary people from life after life after life, not walking around with halos for sure, and often being very weird people, but you can't possibly tell who is a Buddha. Even if he looks like the Dalai Lama, everybody adores him. You can't tell logically. So what do we have to do? We cultivate the confidence. And why is that? How is that beneficial for us? Because if we see him as the Buddha, then his words have incredible power for us. I mean, we see him as the Buddha, so we make his teachings valuable to us. We do the work of Guru devotion. I mean, he could be sitting there being the Buddha for 32 eons, but until we see him as the Buddha, we won't get much benefit. In other words, it's really logical. If you might have heard about some person who's a doctor, but maybe they look a bit ugly or a bit fat or a bit they pick their nose or something. You just think he's a creepy person. He might have the best knowledge in the universe, but because you don't see them as a doctor, when they do talk, you can't have any confidence in what they say. So the person's got the knowledge there, but we have to see it, and then when we see it and we have confidence, there's the Buddha, and you do your checking. You don't just think anybody's a Buddha. Do your market research, please. Do your due diligence. Then you commit and have confidence. Then you practice that. You practice that view. So guess who is the beneficiary? They don't need the benefit. We are the beneficiary. So it's the most powerful practical practice for us as the person who wants to become a Buddha. And it completely transforms our own mind. And that means whatever they do, you see the action as something that will help your mind. And that's so powerful, such a powerful teaching. It's so personal, So when we do these practices of seeing all these, for us, kind of weird looking Tibetan, Indian ladies and gentlemen with many legs and arms and naked bodies and all strange things. Of course, we can't tell. By looking at this green lady, you'd never tell in a million years she represents the quality of power of a Buddha. But when you learn it and you buy into it, and then you cultivate the view that your spiritual teacher, your Lama, your Guru, your person heavy with knowledge is manifesting in this green light body, representing those qualities so that you can cultivate them. It's got real logic to it, And we are the beneficiary. It's the quickest way, because, and another aspect of it too, is that we're human, you know. As Lama Yesi said, we're all dying for love. We all want to be loved. We all want love. Well, choose a person choose a person, the guru, who is a person who won't let you down, who won't disappoint you, whom you can then cultivate to see, to cultivate the view of as an enlightened being, for you, to show you how you can become a Buddha. That everything they, whatever you see, whatever they say, whatever they do, all their actions, all their words, then are like a delicious teaching to you, and they hit your heart. The real thing about Guru devotion, thinking of it very simply, it's just having an open heart, you know, devotion. Devotion is a marvelous quality. We talk about being devoted to your children, devoted to your partner. We respect a person with that. Well, this is devotion where your heart's completely open. It's like your heart's completely open. When your heart is devoted, it is open. That's why you should choose your guru very carefully, as Pabonka Rinpoche said. He says, choose your guru very carefully, because you're going to end up like them. This is so important. The onus is completely on us. You know, I mean, I remember with my lamas, Lama Yeshe, when I first met him, and I eventually connected with him, and Lama Zopa as well, my root guru, both of them. But it took me 10 years to recognize Lama Zopa. I mean, he was always who he was, but it took me 10 years for my mind to be ready so that I could prepare to see him as my guru, to see him as the Buddha for me. And then I start to get the benefit. He was always who he was. But it took me that period to see him. So the onus is on us, you know, to do the work, to check up, to really be clear, especially these days, because so many peanuts around calling themselves spiritual practitioners. Don't just believe what someone tells you. And then you open your heart. And when the heart is open, that's when you can get things easily. If your heart's closed, and what does a heart closed mean? It means attachment. It means arrogance. It means low self-esteem. It means depression. It means kind of aversion. You're pushing a person away. When your heart's more virtuous, loving, compassionate, kind, it's open. And that's when when we get the teachings can come easily into our mind. So cultivating this devotion for the Buddha, Tara, as our own Lama. So then you practice, when you think of your Lama, you think that they are the Buddha. Then when you think of the Buddha, you think they are the Lama. But you've got to cultivate that. It doesn't come naturally. And that's where all the blessings come. That's where we hear the teachings. The Four Noble Truths will become only real for us, and we hear them from that person. You know? It's got it's logical, and it's got great meaning, you know, to think about that. So why don't we just do some meditation then? Just do a very simple version of this meditation. And basically in these meditations, so let's just, before we say that though, the word meditate, there's an interesting point. The meditation is only about 30 minutes, so we've got time. So the word to meditate in Tibetan is very fascinating. It's a surprise to us. The word actually is the verb gom, and it means to familiarize. It's a big surprise to us. I mean, the commonest way we immediately think of meditation, we think of single point of concentration meditation. That technically is just the starting point. That's just where you're sharpening your knife, honing your mind, so that now you can do the real job of the second mode of meditation, of getting insight into reality. Familiarizing your mind. In fact, what meditation is meaning, you're familiarizing your mind. As a Buddhist, you meditate. So what's it mean? You're familiarizing your mind with two things: that which is true, that's wisdom, and that which is virtuous. So it's a practice of training our consciousness to become familiar until we are oneness with wisdom and oneness with virtue. So the meaning of the word is very interesting. It was not the way we tend to think it. It's focusing on something. Concentration is fundamentally necessary. There's this brilliant technique these Hindus invented, you know, more than 3,000 years ago. The Buddha took with him when he diverged in his own direction. It's a central technique in Buddhism. We can't get far until we've got a single point of concentration, no question. But that's just the beginning of the process. You've got your mind honed to a brilliant degree of clarity and subtlety. And now with that brilliant mind, you do the real work of getting insight into reality, all levels of reality. So this is the classic way of the sutra teachings, if you're going to meditate on emptiness, for example, or meditate on karma or on impermanence. But here in the tantric practices, we're using the method, the second method is familiarizing your mind with the visualization of the Buddha, with the visualization, using concentration. And then the second mode is to become familiar with the visualization and then focusing on that. So, okay, so The other thing is, these meditations, as I'll lead them, this is just the essence of these kinds of meditations. There's not much detail, but it's just keeping the essence of it. It's a kind of a purification practice. So basically, the whole approach of these meditations is, you know, in the Lam Rim, you go through the stages of understanding impermanence, and then you start to abide by the laws of karma, then you work on your mind, you get renunciation, you get compassion. It's like this step by step, using your analysis and internalizing this information, gradually transforming your mind. Well, you're doing exactly the same with Tantra and the visualizations, but in a different way. So we're visualizing Tara out there. So we start with the Buddha out there. We're an ordinary person. Then we do this process of purification. And then we visualize absorbing Tara into us. And then we visualize becoming the Buddha, and then we do the compassion wing, and then we make everybody else a Buddha. So in a way, it's a summary of the entire path to enlightenment, but using visualization, using your creative imagination. It's very delicious. I mean, in the West, people love these meditations, you know, because they're using your creative imagination and they're lifting you up. Sometimes it's very depressing thinking about your negativity and your misery and your this, and you're so negative, and your delusions and your prostrations and your purification. You get a bit depressed sometimes. But these meditations can really lift us. And Lama Yeshe really stressed these ones. He would make us, I remember when he would just sometimes lead very simply, these meditations would lift you, feel more confident. Because what you're doing in these practices, they talk about these practices of visualizing the Buddha and then eventually becoming the Buddha, is they talk about it as bringing the end result, your Buddhahood, into the present. So, and these meditations also, they're the ultimate in positive thinking. You're imagining out there perfection, and it's your perfection that you're going to become. It's a bit like, you know, when you're visualizing, like I remember one time in the Melbourne at the Open, you know, the Australian Open, the tennis, and Serena was there, and I think in the breaks she was sitting there reading her little kind of affirmations. I think the camera got in a bit close or something. So she was doing her affirmations. She was imagining winning this tennis. That's exactly what you're doing with Tara and all these practices. You're visualizing the Buddha as the end result, which is going to be you. It's a mirror image of what you're going to become, and you do this process of purifying, which we'll do in the meditation, and then you eventually become the Buddha. It's a very delicious way. And it's very powerful because it's not just wishful thinking. Because remember, with karma, every millisecond of what we think and do and say, none of it goes astray. Every tiny thought counts. So every time we do these practices, we're sowing the seeds of the entire path to enlightenment. It's very, very delicious, I tell you, very powerful. So just do it to the best of our ability. If you're not familiar, don't worry, just do the best you can, listen to the words, try and visualize. And if you can't visualize, don't worry about it. It's completely normal. Don't worry about it. Just think the meaning of it and imagine in your mind that the Tara is there. Imagine, even if you can't see it, don't worry about that. We've all got creative thoughts, so we can certainly think it. So first of all, we get our bodies comfortable, okay? It's really important. I mean, the body doesn't meditate, but it needs to be in a conducive position. So we'll just go to the classic kind of sitting position that all the great yogis of the centuries have found to be most conducive for doing a good meditation session. So the first one is, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said one time, I mean, they all say that the full lotus position is the best, because the greatest yogis who live in their caves day and night, like Geshe-la Kontrog, day and night for weeks meditating, that when you're in the full lotus position, there's something about the alignment of the body that you're able to stay completely upright without toppling over. So most of us can't do that, but never mind. But His Holiness said one time, it's really auspicious to start a session with in full lotus. If you can, it sows the seeds, creates the cause to be able to do it for the most advanced practices. But if you can't, of course, don't worry. So if you have one leg on the other thigh, that's fine. But if not, sitting, and most of us maybe are sitting in chairs, and this is really important, because even though it's going to be a short meditation, we have a tendency to fall asleep. So we need to keep the body upright. So if you're in a chair, don't slump into the back of the chair. Okay, sit upright and have your feet firmly on the ground, but keep your body upright, not held up by the chair. That's important. That's the first thing. The next one is the hands. This is the classic mudra that we've learned, but you can do whatever you like. Under the left underneath, right on top, and the two thumbs touching. I remember years ago hearing, and I can't think of the source, there's something about two subtle channels at the tips of the thumbs that are related to bodhicitta. I really can't remember where that came from. So have you in your lap if you like that. Otherwise, just put your hands on your lap. It doesn't matter. But the body being upright, what we tend to do though is tense the muscles. So it's really important. Have your body upright because of the subtler energies, the wind energy can flow through the different channels. But you've got to relax your muscles. We tend to squeeze our abdomen and squeeze our shoulders. So this is not in the text. I like to say it this way. Think that you're like your skeleton is hanging on a hanger. Everything's completely upright, isn't it? Then all the flesh and the soft bits are hanging completely relaxed on the skeleton. So consciously, they don't say this in the text, but relax your abdomen. They say it about the shoulders. Have your body upright and your shoulders relaxed, but square, not slumped, okay? But muscles relaxed, but body upright. It's very important. Now, the main thing is the head. Several points about the head, okay? First, the chin tucked in slightly. If you had your head thrust back, it makes the mind agitated. So slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in. Then the jaw relaxed. And your lips slightly apart, okay? Now, oddly, but there's logic to this, the tip of the tongue should rest behind the top teeth, just near the palate. And why? Guess what? The yogis have found over the centuries when you're meditating a long time that you don't need to dribble. It prevents you from dribbling and also from swallowing your spit. So it's very practical. Something holy about these things has been found from the experience of the great yogis over the years. And then your eyes, again, all the yogis who meditate day and night, when it's light, they want the light to come in so it keeps their mind sharp. But because we get so distracted, it wouldn't be helpful to have our eyes open. They would have their eyes open. So if you have your eyes lightly closed, but under the eyelids, having your eyes looking down, as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground, okay? So now settle into this position, please. Just settle into it very unself-consciously, remembering your body doesn't meditate. This is just to make it conducive for your mind. So the legs, your back, shoulders, relax your abdomen. That's the extra piece. I don't say that in the text. Your head tilted forward, chin tucked in, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, lips apart, eyes looking down. Okay, so now we will just do first to steady our mind. And we'll do a little bit of Mahamudra. We'll do a bit of Mahamudra. And all that is not all that is. It's a marvelous meditation for how to realize emptiness. But the first part of it is where we do some concentration. But the difference here is not concentration on the image and not concentration on the breath, but concentration on the mind itself. So we'll do about 3 or 4 minutes of really quality concentration. But before we do that, I need to explain what we're doing. We get a bit confused sometimes. Okay, so basically, we're going to pay attention. We're going to make a strong decision for about 4 minutes to pay attention. Pay attention. We get that. To what? Whatever pops up in your mind, whatever thought arises. That's the thing. Whatever pops up. You don't try to conjure thoughts. And when the thoughts are there, because they're there all the time, you don't try to engage in them. You don't try to push them away. You don't wish they weren't there. You don't analyze them. You're just like watching your thoughts, let them come and go. And this is not so easy because we get engaged in the thoughts so quickly. So you're just observing. You catch yourself engaging, relax, just observe. You catch yourself wandering off, you just bring your mind back to the mind. It's just to pay attention to the mind and then start with the thoughts. And eventually, if you're doing this well, the mind will begin to steady, And eventually you start to see the clarity of your mind. That becomes the focus in Mahamudra. But here we start with whatever thoughts pop up. That's it. For about 3 or 4 minutes with determination, I'm going to pay attention to the thoughts. Just the mind. Keep your mind steady. Keep your mind focused. Just pay attention to the thoughts. Let them come and go. All right, so we relax now. It's about 4 minutes. Well, relax, but we're going to keep this focused mind now, and then we'll move into the Tara part. So we're just using our creative imagination, okay, to the best of your ability. We visualize in front of us, about the level of our eyes. We imagine there's this multicolored lotus. And on this lotus is a flat sun disk and moon disk, and they're like representing wisdom and compassion. You can't see them. And then the Buddha Tara is sitting there. So she's in this bodhisattva aspect, as you see it in the pictures, not looking like the Shakyamuni Buddha, not looking like a monk, but in this more radiant, kind of gorgeous, it's like the royal aspect, the aristocratic aspect. Coming from India, of course, but it's been depicted by over the centuries by the Tibetans. So she's totally beautiful, these silken clothes. Her left leg is drawn in, like sitting cross-legged, but her right leg is resting on another little multicolored lotus in this very relaxed pose, which shows this is more her action energy. Some of you might have seen some pictures of Kuan Yin looking like that, the leg relaxed. She's sitting in this relaxed pose. And this is showing that she's ready to hop up immediately and act, to benefit, to act, to make things happen, to get things done. And if you remember the pictures and you've seen the statues, there's multicolored kind of silken clothes on her legs. And then sort of shawls around her shoulders, but basically her upper body is naked. She's got these gorgeous breasts. She's in the aspect of youth. That's how they say about all these Buddhas. They're totally beautiful, young, gorgeous looking. They're meant to lift our minds and meant to make us kind of blissful. It's another whole approach. She's got two hands, and her right hand is on her right knee with her hands pointing up, her palm upwards. And her thumb and her ring finger are touching, and she's holding the mudra there. The gesture is one of like giving, very open, generous, giving good things. And her thumb and her ring finger are holding the stem of a blue upala flower that blooms at her right ear. And her left hand is in the gesture or mudra of the three jewels, I think it's called, standing at her heart, fingers pointing up. And this time the thumb and the ring finger are holding the stem of another blue upala flower that blooms at her left ear. And her face is totally gorgeous. And her eyes are slightly wide open, you see, like that, slightly powerful, wide open. Very beautiful, radiantly beautiful. Everything's made of light, nothing substantial. Her mouth is red, eyes very beautiful, and looking at you, if you can imagine this, if you're a spiritual teacher, whoever you think it is, and even if you're not sure, if you haven't recognized your spiritual teacher, you imagine that they know you. They're waiting for you. They're twiddling their thumbs, waiting for you to recognize them. Because we're only in this path now because we've done it before. We've got connections with the holy beings in the past. So you imagine it's your spiritual teacher, your personal teacher, with whom you have a special connection, manifesting as the Buddha, just for you. So you imagine she's looking at you very beautifully, full of love and compassion. And classically, as you see in all these images, in this bodhisattva style, as they call it, her hair is partially held up in a top knot, this 5-pointed crown on her head. Every tiny thing that she's wearing, it all has meaning, It's like this visual language. And you imagine the rest of her hair down her back. Everything's crystal clear, very radiant. And in the Indian style, decorated beautifully, the ears and upper arms and wrists and ankles with beautiful jewels, her throat. Sort of like a shawl, scarf type thing around her back and around her arms. You see it in the pictures, Everything's radiant, utterly beautiful, to make your mind so happy, to lift you, to lift your heart. And think she is a mirror image of our potential. She's showing us exactly what we can become. She has all the qualities of a Buddha, of course. Infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, but her particular aspect is action, confidence, courage, cut through the obstacles, make things happen, get things done, be successful. We need that badly. And she's your Lama manifesting in this aspect. The Guru is the Buddha and the Buddha is the Guru. No difference, can't be. So now she's so compassionately wanting only to benefit us now. She sends first from her brow laser beams of white light that penetrate our brow and fill us completely with this blissful white light. And we imagine first what it does is completely purify all the illness and heaviness and difficulties of this body of ours, this bag of bones. It's so hard to lug around life sometimes. Imagine completely purifying all the sickness and making it light and clear. At the same time, you imagine this white light is purifying every atom of all the karmic seeds of any action we've ever done since beginningless time to harm sentient beings with our bodies. If you can imagine all the countless past lives. And because nothing goes astray, those countless seeds are sitting there waiting, latent, to ripen as our suffering. And we do not want that. So all the countless actions we've done this life, killing the creatures, maybe the baby we aborted, maybe the people we killed when we're in the military, maybe the ants, the fish, the dog, the cat, the creatures we've killed out of ignorance, and all the harm we've ever done, especially as animals. Especially as animals, their suffering is so unbearable. And they live by eating and being eaten, don't they? So much harm, so much suffering, all these karmic imprints, completely annihilated by this blissful white light filling us. How amazing. Again, Lama Tara so compassionately sends these laser beams of white light from her brow again, entering our brow, and this time filling us with what else? With the potential of this body of ours. So in the long term, it's the potential to manifest in countless bodies throughout space, to benefit others. It's not possible to do anything else but to benefit. And to think this body even, imagine only whoever sees us, hears us, touches us, smells us, tastes us, can only be benefited by my body. Can you imagine this? Full of this marvelous potential, our own potential to be of benefit to others with our bodies. It's blissful white light filling us. So now Lama Tara so compassionately, this time sends laser beams of red light from her throat that penetrate our throat and fill us instantly. And this time annihilating all the karmic seeds of all the harm we've ever done since the beginning of time with our speech. And of course, this is mostly humans. I mean, ants and dogs and rats have a few sounds, but we're the ones who do all the harm with our clever words, all our abusive language, disharmonious talk behind backs, all our rubbish speculating, even though it's not technically negative, we just confuse people, all our rabbiting on about nothing, all our lies, just the way we misuse our speech, not thinking it's important. The harm we've done since the beginning of this time eradicated by this blissful red light filling us. Even the feeling we have of not being able to express ourselves properly, all of this gone, imagine, full of this blissful red light. Again, Lama Tara sends again the right light. Red light from her throat penetrates our throat and fills us with our potential. It's called the power of speech. This is the main gift of the Buddha. And you think about this. We need this badly in our daily lives. We use our speech for everything. So if we're not going to be believed, if people don't listen to us, if people don't think our speech is effective, if we can't express ourselves properly, can you imagine? We need this badly just to have our lives leading properly. But especially to have the power of speech, such that any sound we utter, even good morning, even our laugh, is of benefit to whoever hears it. The humans, the animals, the creatures, the birds. Imagine this, our marvelous potential to be of benefit to others with our speech, filling us with this red light. Now Guru Tara, Lama Tara compassionately sends from her heart chakra in the center of her chest, radiant beams of laser beams of blue light, blue like the sky, penetrating our throat, our heart, and filling us instantly, this blue light, and instantly annihilating all the delusions that are the source of what we do with our body and speech to harm others. All of this instantly gone. The ego grasping that clings to the self-existent me, and the attachment that arises as a result, and the aversion that comes from when attachment doesn't get what it wants, and all the other dramas, all the other nonsense, the jealousy, the low self-esteem, the depression, the anxiety, all the fears of samsara. Tara is often known as the conqueror of the fears of samsara. Liberator, Doma in Tibetan, liberator from the fears of samsara. Imagine this, all the delusions gone, full of this blissful blue light, this weight lifted from us. Again, Lama Tara sends the blue light. And this time, what else but the potential of our minds, all the virtues, all the wisdom, naturally manifesting. What else? This is our true nature, full of love, wisdom, compassion, kindness, generosity, and bliss. When our mind is unencumbered of all the junk, only there is bliss left. This is incredible. This is our natural state. Imagine this. We've liberated ourselves from the suffering and its causes, full of this blissful blue light. And now this time, Lama Tara sends the three lights together, because now we've now achieved liberation. And what we have to do is achieve omniscience. So what we've got to do now is remove even the subtlest imprints left over that are preventing us from becoming actually a Buddha. So Lama Tara so compassionately sends from the three places together, white from the brow, red from the throat, and blue from the heart, entering our three places, filling us completely and purifying even these subtlest imprints, removing even the obscurations to omniscience. Imagine them becoming the Buddha, our own Tara. How amazing. So now we imagine that the lotus that Lama Tara is sitting on dissolves up into her body, and the little lotus that her right leg is resting on dissolves into her body. And then you imagine very happily wanting to come and sit above our crowns. She just comes over and sits above our head, the same way, facing the same way as us. You imagine that. Just imagine that. And then very happily, wanting to become oneness with our body, speech, and mind, she dissolves into green light, enters into us and fills us completely. And we imagine the energy of the Guru's body, speech, and mind, Tara's body, speech, and mind, and our own body, speech, and mind completely merge, becoming union oneness, as Lama Yeshe says. Just imagine this. We become oneness with the energy of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha and of the Guru. No differentiation. Full of this blissful energy. And now, imagine expanding to fill the universe. Just abide in that blissful state, vast, clear, radiant, no thoughts, as big as the universe. So now thinking, now I've become the Buddha, but what good is this to sentient beings? Why else have I become a Buddha? Because of compassion. So I now must benefit them. That's my job. So now we imagine, first of all the beings of the universe, and we can divide them into three categories. There's no fourth category. There are those we're attached to, our beloveds, our friends. There are those we have aversion for. They're our enemies. We mightn't use that word, but it's a good term. Those you have aversion for, who are the ones who don't do what your attachment wants, basically. And then those whom we are indifferent to. And who are they? That's 99.99% of the universe, the strangers. So right in front of us, you imagine your enemies, the people who've harmed you, hurt you, people you've rejected, people who've been unkind to you, right in front of you. Even just one or two of them right now, the ones you're having struggles with. Right in front. To the left, your beloveds. Even just one there. Or imagine all the others, the objects of your attachment. To the left in front of you. And then to imagine to the right and everywhere else, to as far as the horizon goes into the front, above you, to the left, to the right, below and behind. All the other beings of the universe, all the strangers, and all having their own particular sufferings of their own realms, but all in the form of humans, which is the form they can get enlightened in. Just imagine this, the whole of the universe full, sentient beings, friends, enemies, and strangers. So what do they want? Exactly the same as each other and exactly the same as me. They want happiness. They don't want suffering. That's it. So clear. And every one of them have the potential to accomplish this. So now as Buddha, I have no choice but to help them. So imagine from our hearts, trillions of tiny green taras emanate out. Enter into first the enemies, the hearts of the enemies, taking away all their suffering, taking away the delusions, taking away their negative karma, completely purifying them, taking away their suffering. And the friends and all the strangers throughout the universe, trillions of tiny taras going out in all the directions, taking away them. That's the practice of compassion. May they not suffer, and I alone will do it. That's the great attitude of the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas. And now you're qualified to do it. Imagine. Taking away their suffering. And as we just visualize this, removing all their suffering and its causes, just a few times we can sing the mantra of Tara. Om Tare Tutare Ture Svaha. 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 Totally free of suffering and its causes. How amazing. Now, again, we send trillions of taras out, hitting into the hearts of the enemies, friends, and strangers, and this time giving them everything they want, giving them happiness, giving all the different beings in the realms what they need, everything they need, giving them so happily, and seeing them delighted as we do this. Trillions of taras going out as we sing the mantra. Om Tare Tutare Ture Svaha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Svaha. Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha. 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 And now, again, we send Taras, and this time we turn them into their Tara. They achieve their, totally release from suffering and its causes and achieve their own Buddhahood. Trillions of Taras going out to my heart, turning every single one of them, all the enemies, all the friends, and all the strangers into their Tara, because this is the potential of everyone naturally. So happy to do this. Om Tare Tutare Ture Swaha. 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 So now they all dissolve into green light. Imagine, from the whole universe, all directions, they all dissolve into us, enhancing even more brilliantly our entire nature. Just imagine this. To finish. And relax. That's it. So we just practice the entire path to enlightenment and left seeds in the mind. And the key thing is, this is a really important point, okay? We're so obsessed in our culture with thinking of meditation as to get an experience. So some people might have been completely bored during that. So you think, oh, what a waste of time. And some people might have blissed out. So you think, oh, I had a lovely meditation. But that's not really the point. It's a bonus if you feel good. But what we've got to really remember, every tiny thing we think and do and say, we're programming our mind. We just programmed our mind with the entire path to enlightenment. I mean, how incredible. That's the real benefit. Feeling good is a secondary, but we're so obsessed with that. We think it's like we want to have a special experience. It helps to do that. We need to be lifted. It's true. But if you didn't, it doesn't matter. You sowed the seeds, and that's all that matters. It's like if you go out in the garden, you might have a headache, and it's a rainy day, and you feel dreadful. I don't care. You still do the weeding, and the seeds will be planted. Whether you feel good or not is not the issue. But we're so obsessed with that in our culture. It's training. Meditation is training. You're programming your mind, and that's what we've just done. That's incredible. To be very delighted. Even if you're bored to tears, it doesn't matter. Okay, now you've got a bit of time. You're going to have to ask me some questions. Or whatever you like to do, because we're done. Anybody got questions? Any kind of question, I don't mind. Anything, doesn't matter. There's a voice.
I have a question.
Is it Doris, darling? Talk to me.
Sure. It's a technical question on breathing.
Yes.
I find that I naturally go to very shallow breathing.
Okay, that's good.
Should I try to adjust that?
No, it's okay. I mean, shallow breathing, some people got different views. What's that Russian guy, that breathing guy who helps people cure their asthma with totally shallow breathing? He says deep breathing is the worst in the world. Boskovsky, no, that's the wrong person. Can anybody think of who I'm saying? This amazing Russian guy who lived in Australia since the 50s. He's a bit controversial. Anyway, he does totally shallow breathing. You train yourself, and apparently it's totally amazing. You cure unbelievable sicknesses. He cures asthma, everything with totally shallow breathing. So, and I think as your mind gets more subtle, eventually you'll stop breathing when you really get concentration, Doris. So natural, it's okay. Shouldn't don't force it.
I'll try to look up that reference.
I can't think of his name. It's a Russian guy. He's famous. People are very, I mean, the regular medical system is completely cynical about him, but he has incredible results. It's very interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good, darling. Anybody else? Brad. Looks like you got a question. No, Brad? Oh, no?
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
thank you. That helped with, we did that was a deity meditation. Is that the same? Chenrezig, like the visualization?
Yeah, they're similar. This is a variation. All the different practices are variations of this. The Buddha's out there, you do certain visualizations, and then you become the Buddha. I mean, it's a nice way of just doing it, of purifying, and the different scenarios for the different Buddhas. But they're essentially the same idea.
Yes, that notion of a devotion really helped.
Did it? That's very good, Brad. I'm happy.
Yeah.
You've been thinking about this, have you?
Well, it's just that I did breath, just on the breath for so long. And then
Yes.
when I first did the sadhana
Yes.
last year,
Yes.
my ego was like, this is weird.
Okay, I understand that exactly. It is. I mean, it is initially very weird. I agree. I know the very first time I did it, it was so strange and foreign. So I did visualizing somebody, and I mean, it's true. But it really is. If you have a relationship with, you like the Buddhas and you like a particular teacher, it really does lift the heart and opens you up. It's very excellent. So I'm glad. Where are you, Brad?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Oh yeah, it's good time for you. It's lunchtime, isn't it? Yeah. Good, mate. Good, Brad.
No, that was wonderful. Thanks.
Good. I'm very happy. Thank you, Brad. Well, who else? People, come on. Charlene, no questions? Happy to see you, Charlene. Who else?
This is Dana. I have a question.
I've got to find you first, Dana, where I can hear your voice. There you go. No, where's Dana? There you go. I can see you, darling. Yes.
Yeah. Can you just speak to the difference between green Tara and white Tara?
Yeah, there's many taras, actually, as you might know. I mean, there's 21 taras, and there's peaceful ones, wrathful ones, red ones, yellow ones, green ones. So white tara, traditionally, she's for long life, and she's got eyes are here and there. She's sitting full lobes, and she's looking a bit different. And then green tara is this one that, you know, we've discussed, and she's more towards the action energy one. So there are many different manifestations of tara, but this is a really popular one, the green one. But white tara is for long life. She's traditionally for long life. Yeah?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good. Who else? Hello, Catherine. We should take prayers for Catherine's darling daddy. He died recently. Anybody else? We'll finish off with a bit of that as well for everybody. Yeah. So anybody questions? No questions, people. We can leave it. We can start. We can finish early. Don't need to stay till 8:30.
Christopher, I have a question.
Yes, Christopher. Chris. Yes.
Yes. So I'm in Buddhist kindergarten. Like.
Okay. Well, join the club, really, Chris. We all are.
I feel like I'm being called to action, so I'm glad we're talking about action.
Okay.
But I'm so focused on the wisdom wing and getting myself in a place where I can be compassionate and help others. But I feel like I'm being called to action.
Okay.
But I second guess myself all the time because I'm so.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. That's a big struggle for many of us, isn't it?
It's been a big struggle, yes.
Yes. So then, question?
Well, I guess my question is, where do I find the confidence to transform my wisdom into action?
Exactly. No, I know. I mean, sometimes we just got to do it. But other times it is worth doing a bit of analysis, Chris. I mean, we're all similar, not as if trying to sort of show you up or anything. But I think we've got to look at what it is that makes us afraid to act. I mean, you know, if you're going to walk across a freeway and not know how many cars are coming, that's a foolish thing to do. But very, very often, we just have to act. And then, I mean, if it's not going to be a dire consequence, we can learn from our experience. So people often can act foolishly. I mean, some of us have that energy. I know for me, I make dumb decisions, you know, I rush off too quickly and act. But sometimes if you have the opposite, either you just decide I'm going to do it and learn humbly from your mistakes, or look at what it is. Can you analyze what it is that makes you hold back? Is it afraid of, and we often talk about afraid of doing the wrong thing. I mean, is it that part of you? Can you see that aspect of yourself? Afraid of being wrong? Or what? Afraid of being criticized? I mean, the attachment to being seen as a good person is quite a very profound delusion in all of us, Chris. And that's a common thing. But I mean, can you see, I mean, not trying to be too personal, but can you see it in yourself, whatever it is?
Well, yes, I guess then I'm just learning how to be conscious on a daily basis. And
Right, exactly.
yeah. And I guess I'm just a little reticent about acting too quickly with this new frame of reference that I have. And
I understand. But I mean, I'm again not trying to be too personal, but are you talking about business decisions, life decisions? Like you want to leave Dawn, but you keep not acting? I mean, what, you know, I understand. I mean, what kind of decisions is it? What?
I'm never leaving Dawn.
There you go. Okay, that's clear. You made that decision. That's action, baby.
Yeah, no, not business decisions. It's social action and, you know, social.
What do you mean, like being around other people?
No, like the protests, the social injustices.
Oh, okay. You mean you don't get out there and hold up the flag and get beaten up by the coppers? Is that what you're saying? Well, I mean, okay. You mean you're kind of thinking you should be out there, but you're not. Is that what you're suggesting?
Right. I feel like I should be out there, but I'm focused on preparing myself. But I don't know.
Preparing yourself to get out there perfectly.
Right.
You see, that's a bit like, Chris, we're all a bit like that. And that, okay, now I'm hearing you. That's a bit like saying, well, I'm not going to ride a bike. You know, I'm not going to get on a bike until I can ride a bike perfectly. That's what, and that's the view that comes from ego grasping, which is the view that sees everything as very, very solid and very concrete and very unindependent. So when you understand dependent arising, everything starts with the first step. I mean, you pave the way, but we're trying to be perfect. And that's an impossibility. It's not impossible, but you've got to pave the way to perfection by taking one humble step at a time. We often think, I'll do it when it's perfect. That's insanity. You'll go mad.
Thank you.
Do you understand? It's understanding dependent arising. There's this amazing saying that our mothers tell us, we pave the way. You just start with the smallest step because you can't take a perfect step because you're heading towards perfection, but you've got to pave the way to it. You take this first step and then that leads to the second step. And we all know, I've got these lovely sayings, Rome wasn't built in a day. You've got to start somewhere, you know. But also sometimes another aspect is if you think you should be getting out there and doing something you're not doing, maybe you just also, maybe it's not necessary. Maybe there's other ways of doing things. You don't have to rush off and be visible. I mean, we've got to know our own style, know our own capability, know what our responsibilities are. And maybe maybe to go off into a 6-week retreat is the best way to help the world. There are different ways of doing it, not always just one. So maybe you're just being guilty unnecessarily. You've got to know yourself what the problem is. Do you understand?
I do. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, thank you for that. It's very helpful. So there's Charmaine. Looks like it's time to finish. She's the sign that we began and ended. Okay, so we're time to go, are we, Charmaine? So should we finish with the little baby? Unless there's any more urgent questions. Are there any more questions? Any, even non-urgent? More questions? Any questions? We've got more days together. We might die tomorrow. You just don't know them. We might die tonight. So listen, let's finish with a little prayer, this wonderful aspiration, this amazing bodhisattva attitude. And you know, like there's compassion, which is, oh my God, look at the suffering. Then there's great compassion. Oh my God, what can I do to help? Then there's the special attitude, as they say, which is, you know what? I'm going to do it by myself alone. So we do these wonderful 4 immeasurable thoughts, sow the seeds of this amazing attitude of the brave bodhisattvas. Just contemplate how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings, put the people back. I want to see the people first. Can I see the people before we do these? Just contemplate the 4 immeasurable thoughts. Thanks, Mary. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free of attachment, ignorance, and anger. May they abide so. And here comes the Bodhisattva one. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness and its causes. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. And how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. So we just finished. Don't do that. We don't sing the prayers. Just dedicate, thinking this amazing time of hearing all these things, doing this practice, sowing all these incredible seeds in our mind. Just be so blissed out. Be so happy. And may I nourish these seeds from this moment forward. So I'll never give up nourishing them. So I will become a Tara. So I will be able to do exactly as we meditated. And may this bodhicitta grow and grow in the hearts of all. And may all our lamas live long, long lives. Okay. Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.